and learn. That's the way I look at it, man.
Yep, I agree.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Corey Bosmer, host of Conversations with Corey, and the person that runs the football page, Football of Kentucky. Today's guest is Jake Crane of Crane & Co. How you doing today, Jake?
Man, I'm doing great. Getting ready for the Super Bowl, and while college football season never ends, we got a long wait until we get to kick this bad boy off again. But I'm doing all right.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Are you guys going to the Super Bowl?
We're not. We're actually going to live stream it over on YouTube, on Rumble at Crane and Company. We live streamed the national championship game, the college football national championship game, and had a ton of people watching it. It's one of the biggest things we ever did. And basically, we're betting the whole time. We've been very fortunate the last two live streams to win a decent amount of money. We're kind of talking through the game. You know, I played and coached the Division I for, over half a decade. My brother played FCS football, and then our other host, David Cohn, played quarterback at Michigan. So, we're kind of watching the game like we'd watched it at the house, but with other people taking questions, live calls, and stuff like that. So we're going to live stream that bad boy.
Now, how did you guys come about doing this, and how did you guys come across Dave?
Well, just basically how the show started is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy story, man. I've only really been doing this 3.5 years. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I played sports my whole life. That's kind of what my family did. Got done playing, started coaching, moved around the country doing that. And during COVID, when we got sent back just because nobody knew what was going on, bought a $50 mic off Sweetwater. I'm not a technological savant
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. So I got it on audio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. This is just me. And it was called The J Boys Show. And like, man, I didn't even know what was good. I was just really honestly trying to waste time. Like I didn't sit down and have like this master plan of what I wanted this to be. I was just waiting to go back to
Yeah.
where I was coaching. So it got bigger and bigger, and then I started having people reach out to me about wanting to sponsor it, and I need to do it more. And so I kind of got to thinking, and by the time that we got called back, yeah, I'd been asked to move to Atlanta to go on video. I was going to make more money than where I was coaching at the time. So, man, I took the chance there, and we ended up signing with Colin Cowherd and the Volume to be their college football show. And that's when I brought my brother on and David Cohn, who I met in Atlanta. Did a 6-month deal with them. It went really well. We were renegotiating to a longer term deal. And Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire reached out to be a non-political sports show. And obviously we did that. And now this has blown up. And we were in a movie that was just released. It was the #1 streaming movie in the country called Lady Ballers. So it's done a lot in 3.5 years. Got married, right? Got bought more dogs. So it's I moved up here to Nashville, so it's been a whirlwind. I really honestly think I'm in a coma, if we're gonna be honest. Like I think I got hit by a semi. I
Yeah.
hope I'm wrong. I hope I don't wake up, but no, it's been wild.
We talked before we got started. That's kind of how I feel about things. And at the end of the day, man, sometimes you just got to take the chance. You got to jump. You got to say, excuse my language, but you got to say fuck it and just do it.
Yeah. I mean,
You
no,
know,
look, scared money don't make no money. Stupid money doesn't make any money either, but scared money
there you
also
go.
doesn't make any money.
No, facts. And I get asked all the time. I just now started making a little bit of money through Facebook. It took People don't realize though, man. What I try to stress to people like you do know, you just got to say fucking and do it. Got to take the chance. Got to believe in yourself. And at the end of the day, and when you're going to get to a certain point where you can't quit. You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? You probably came to that situation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. And I'm slowly getting to that point now myself.
And I mean, look, it's just like anything.
Yeah.
And I think being in that coaching lifestyle where, I mean, you're working pretty much year round. I mean, pretty much
Yeah.
every day when it comes down to recruiting, and now having to re-recruit your own guys with what's going on in the transfer portals added another weapon to the monster. But you get used to that lifestyle of working all the time, and once I started doing this, I started working all the time. I'm on the radio all the time. I'll go on whatever show, big, small, whatever, because that's how I'm used to it. It's like it's like one of my coaches used to say when we do conditioning, and I used to tell my guys this, we don't run you and do all this and wear you out. because I don't like you because it makes me feel good. I do it. So when that alarm clock rings at 6 in the morning, you get your ass out of bed and you go to work because that's what you're used to doing. That's what the expectation for yourself is. So yeah, I've just brought that mentality to this. And obviously I know how the sausage is made because I've been in it and seen it. Now, do I have all the answers? No. I got a lot of them, but that's what I think is cool about the show, though, is there's three of us. We kind of balance each other out. And if you've ever watched or listened to Crane and Company, you know what I'm talking
Oh
about.
yeah.
So, yeah, man, that's just kind of our mindset. It's how we do it. It's how we go about it.
Right, right, definitely, definitely. I think I might have been last Friday's show of y'all's, or yesterday or today. Y'all were talking. It might have been a caller. It was a caller. Y'all's called in talking about somebody mentioned Nick Saban, and then it was you that got on about how coaches in general now are getting away from the college game because of what it's turning into. And then y'all got into the topics of how college football, more so often than not, sooner than later, is going to pull away from NCAA
Mhm.
as a whole. Do you think that's one of the main reasons why Nick Saban retired, or do you just feel like he was just tired?
Well, in these situations, I typically think it's multiple things. I think we have a bad habit of every time something happens like this, it's got to be one thing. Oh, something's got to be wrong in the family, or maybe it's just the way that college football is evolving. And I'm not saying that that doesn't ever happen, but typically when a guy like Nick Saban, who, regardless of age, if you watch the man, especially what he did this past year, he could go at least a couple more years and be effective. So I think it was probably multiple things. He also just bought an island, for $17 million, I think it was. So if I was going to buy an island, you'd catch my ass boogie boarding over there too, eventually. But I think the ever changing landscape now of college football probably had a little bit to do with it. But let's remember, and this is what I always tell people: one of the reasons that Nick Saban is the GOAT, one of the reasons that he's was able to do what he did at such a high level for so long, which that's the most impressive part. Not that you got there, it's that you stayed there for so long, is because he was malleable even when he was at the top. And you say, Jake, what do you mean? Give me an example. All right, I'll give you an example. So the hurry up, no huddle. Remember, Nick Saban was upset about it, said he didn't like the way it was going, the way it's officiated. And instead of complaining and complaining and complaining and never changing, like we're seeing Dabo Sweeney do at Clemson, he said, all
So
right, that's
much.
fine. I'll just go hire the guys that are the best in the world at it, and we'll become one of the most elite offenses while running an aspect of what I'm complaining about. So the guys that are malleable when they get to the top, not that anybody will be able to replicate what he did. You can't have that much control anymore with the way the game's going. So, that's the long way of saying it probably had a little bit to do with it, but I don't want that to downplay, Nick Saban's ability to, be malleable when he was at the highest level of college football, which allowed him to maintain that, even though he didn't win a national championship in the last 3 years.
But it's crazy because I truly believe had that muff, fumble or hike, the quarterback had, was it Monroe? Monroe, right?
Milrow, yeah.
Milroe had, I would have bet they'd at least made it to the title game, just be giving them momentum of the game.
Yeah, well, it's almost like, it's the football gods. You got a 4th and goal from the 31 against Auburn coming off a bad snap. You get a bad snap this time. It's the football gods are just as cyclical as football is in general. But I want to go back to something you said, because we did talk about that. There's a lot of people saying, oh, well, the changing of the college game, all these college coaches are wanting to go to the NFL. And they're talking about the younger guys are now wanting to just go to the NFL. Let me explain something to people out there. Like you've got to realize the NFL is the highest level of football. That's like, and that's an obvious. There are some guys that do want to just coach in college, but a lot of guys do want to go to the NFL. Like the NFL doesn't want all the guys. Like that's even some really good college coaches the NFL does not want. But
Right.
I find it fascinating that people are like, oh, all these college coaches are wanting to go to the NFL, when that's like saying like, oh, well, this guy wants to this guy's going to Walmart after working at a mom and pop. Well, yeah, you upgraded. Like that should be expected. But and it's all circumstantial. Every
Yep.
different calculated move by a coach is circumstantial. So Jeff Hafley, the head coach at Boston College, goes from Boston College to be the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. And everybody says, oh, he left college because the game is changing. Jeff Hafley almost got fired this year at Boston College. They lost to
Yep.
Holy Cross. They made a bowl game by the skin of their teeth. If they didn't win 7, probably 8 games next year, which it's going to be really tough, even though Castellanos returns or losing a decent amount on defense, he was going to get fired. So that was a smart move. They talk about Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL. Jim Harbaugh's an NFL guy. He was at the NFL before this. Liam Cohen at Kentucky, who was Sean McVay for the Rams. That was his protege. He went to Kentucky, then went to the Rams, then went back to Kentucky. Now he's going back to the NFL. And people are saying, oh, it's because the college football landscape is changing. Maybe that'll have a bigger effect on the older guys, like it did in college basketball with Jim Boeheim and Roy Williams and Coach K a little bit. But I just don't buy into that narrative. I think we're in dead season already, and people are trying to just invent narratives to just feed off like a dead animal. I just don't agree with it. Like Bill O'Brien just came back to college. Like Bill Belichick's son just went to college, like from the NFL. So it's now like the NFL are people just migrating away from it? I think it's a terrible argument.
No, it is when you really look at it in totality. I feel though, like you said, you got to upgrade. You always have to upgrade. You stay back. What are you doing with yourself? And it's like you said too.
It's the NFL.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to at least give it a shot?
Yeah, Nick Saban gave it a shot. Steve Spurrier gave it a shot. Urban Meyer gave it a shot. You want to know why? Because that's the highest level. I love college football more than the NFL. I'll be the first one to stand up on the table and tell you that. But some guys, especially after they've had success in college, Steve Spurrier dominated college as a player and as a coach. All right. And then wanted to go to the NFL. Nick Saban was dominating college football, wanted to see if he could do it in the NFL. Urban Meyer, same thing. We see this story over and over. Jimmy Johnson from Miami, same thing. So Barry Switzer, same thing. Like it blows my mind that people are acting like this is some, Mount Vesuvius erupting in college football. We got problems, all right, but every relationship's not perfect.
Facts. Trust me, I've been married going on. I'll be 8 years in August. Been with the same woman, be 11 years this summer. Trust me,
I'm 6 months in, so it's going good.
Yeah. Any advice? Would you like any advice?
Any advice? Look, please write down as much as possible. Put it on a pigeon's foot.
Yeah, definitely. I want to touch base on Kentucky, given one, that's where I'm from, and two, you just mentioned Kentucky football with Liam Cohen. What's your thoughts on Stoops, what Mark has accomplished there, and their situation with the offensive coordinator?
Well, look, Mark's going to get a guy, and I want to make sure and give Coach Stoops credit. And some Kentucky fans, you know what? Actually, I don't think Kentucky fans, who I'm sure obviously a lot of them listen to the show, will be pissed at me. I think Mark Stoops does more with less than just about anybody in the SEC. And I think John Calipari does less with more than just about anybody in the SEC. It's a pretty interesting dynamic going on at Kentucky right now. Now, I know that Kentucky was a little bit, let down how last year went, even though you did beat Louisville at the end. You finished strong. I was glad to see Devin and those guys finish strong. And I tell you what, I like Brock Vandagriff. Whatever offensive coordinator you bring in, and there's still some guys out there that I'm interested to see. You look at a guy like Brennan Marion. I know his name hasn't been brought up a ton with that go-go offense. Would Mark Stoops as a defensive guy want to do that? And put that much more pressure on his defense when we know that depth is already hard to achieve at a high level in the SEC? I don't know. I don't think so. So I think you may get somewhat similar to what you saw with Liam, a guy that's going to give you a lot of motion pre-snap, a lot of different formations, trying to catch you with your pants down, a lot of formation in the boundary and things like that. And a guy that's not afraid, to reach in the bag every now and then and understands, how to utilize play action. Because Mark, again, at the end of the day, is a defensive guy. So I like what's going on in the quarterback room right now. I think you got a good one in Brock Vandagriff. So look, I think Kentucky, just like everybody else in the SEC, is very interested to see how Texas and Oklahoma kind of fits in. To be honest with you, I need to go through Kentucky's schedule again. But I think Mark Stoops has shown the ability to be able to make the right hires, and you got to trust a guy. It's one of the most important things the head coach can do. One of the most important attributes that a head coach can have. So look, my hat's off to him. I think he's done a hell of a job.
Yeah, definitely. And back to Mark being on the defensive side of things, people don't. A lot of people forget he come from Florida State on the defensive side of the ball. Right before Mark left, Florida State was what, like 103rd or the 106th in the nation in
Mm,
defense. Whenever Mark left, they were what, top three, top five.
yeah. Well,
That right there
yeah.
alone, yeah,
Well, it tells you that, and again, not that he just wants to clam up and turn it back into the Eddie Grand special, which was, basically the glorified triple option. It was like jumping in a time machine. I think he's evolved from that.
yeah,
So I don't think they're going to go that far back in time, but make no mistake, at the end of the day, Mark Stoops understands that Kentucky's best chance is to be able to run the ball and stop the run. And that's the way
definitely.
he's going to do it. And it's a smart way to do it.
Now I want to touch base on Calipari. I always say that name
Yeah.
wrong for some reason. I've always been a very big supporter of him, despite any and everything. I've always been the type of guy that always says, "Well, look what he's still accomplished overall, and how hard it is." Blah blah blah. This year's starting to slowly but surely, I want to say, pull me completely away from that in totality. But it's starting to make me second guess my thoughts as far as how much. Because at the end of the day, you need to produce more than what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team of Johns have this much lack in the defensive side of things. How do you lose to the teams that you're losing to? And then you break down his record against certain teams overall. There's no way in hell you should be 2-4 or 2-5 against a South Carolina or Vanderbilt or something like that. I mean, you're Kentucky for a reason. At some point, if it continues to go on the way that it has, if you're Mitch Barnhart, do you be like, we got to figure something out or go another way? But the flip side of that, though, too, is this: who you gonna get?
Well,
Who would take
look,
it on?
yeah. Well, look, to me, and I think Kentucky fans have done nothing but be patient with John Calipari. I
They
mean,
have.
let's just look. For the last 3 years, I think literally since I've started doing this, and I've caught hell from Kentucky fans left and right for it, but it's amazing. Now it's starting to turn around. Kentucky recruits itself. I'm not saying John Calipari isn't a great recruiter, but you don't have to be the best salesman in the world to get guys to go play at Kentucky, right? You don't have to be the smoothest talker to be able to convince guys to go to Kentucky. Not that it's the easiest thing in the world, but Kentucky is an Alabama type brand of football in basketball,
Yes,
right? You
for
look at
sure.
the
100%.
support. Rupp Arena, which should be like walking into the gates of Mordor by yourself without a ring that can help you disappear. But
Yep.
Kentucky, year in and year out, has the best talent that does not produce on a high level. Go back and look. The SEC, if we're going to be honest, in basketball right now, runs through the state of Alabama. I mean, the Crimson Tides won 3 SEC championships. Auburn's won 2. I don't think
Yep.
Kentucky's won more than 1. I think maybe Tennessee won the other one. I may be wrong there, but look, at the end of the day, John Calipari's getting paid the most money, and he's not doing anything with it. It's not like you're making deep runs in the tournament every year, and it seems like it's always something different with each team. Oh, this team can't shoot. Oh, this team isn't physical. Oh, this team can't rebound. Oh, this team can't defend. The Kentucky team I'm watching right now, you know who they remind me of? They remind me of the LSU football team that I watched this past season. Really good on offense. Shepherd, wet, right? Dillingham,
Yeah.
walking bucket. That huge thing y'all got from like Greece or whatever. Big Z should be helping out a lot more now that he's eligible. I know Wagner was out last game, but I'm looking at these guys on y'all's team, and there's no way you should be giving up 103 points at home against Tennessee. Like at some point, John Calipari is not getting it done. If you're a Kentucky fan, if you're somebody that pays money to go to these games, are you in the administration or something like that? Like at what point is being almost good enough not good enough? Like at what point for Kentucky basketball is that? Because I don't think they're going to win the SEC this year from what I'm seeing. I don't see a deep run by this team. And once again, you're uber talented. So again, I'm to the same point now where, and I've said a million times, you better thank God for Anthony Davis. You better, if John Calipari was smart, he would wake up every morning and just look to the sun and just close his eyes for a second and just thank Anthony Davis. Because if it wasn't for Anthony Davis, he wouldn't have won anything at Kentucky. And you want to know why? You want to know why? Because I think John Calipari is better at a place like Memphis, where, yeah, it may be a decent-sized basketball school, but it's not the monster, right? It's not. Some people can be the Dark Emperor. Other people can't. John Calipari just can't be the Dark Emperor, right? So at the end of the day, you're just going to keep forking over this money to not be dominant in the sport. Because look around, the SEC's not getting any worse, guys. Here comes Texas and Oklahoma, right? So again, I know Kentucky fans are pissed. Welcome to the club, right? Welcome to it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, I think they've only won, I think, since 2019, one, maybe two games.
Yeah, look, I mean,
That's horrible.
With what you're paying John Calipari.
Exactly. It doesn't equate.
You are getting robbed. And it's overtime. Like, this is, what's that show on ABC with Mandy Moore? This Is Us. Guess what? This is y'all right now. I mean, and guess what? After this, John Calipari will say all these things, right? I take responsibility, and I get it, right? The same guy who was talking trash about Mark Stoops and the football team. It's amazing when that went down, but that's a story for another day. But here's what'll happen. Kentucky will go sign the greatest recruiting class in the history of college basketball going into 2025. Oh, man, 2025 is going to be the year, and you'll get the same thing, then the same thing, and the same thing. At some point, man, it's Kentucky.
I feel like Mitch Barnhart is in a lose-lose situation here.
Did they give him a lifetime contract?
Years or lifetime something.
Oh no. That's right. Did they give him the lifetime? Did they? No way.
I'm gonna look it up right now because now I'm curious. It's either
I think I remember reading something where it was like it's either a lifetime but he would like be kept
10 years
as an administrator, like a consultant or something, and still get paid. It's something like that. But this is why, man.
So all right,
lifetime's a lifetime. It's like a marriage, man. Yeah. You gotta know what you're signing up for.
Calipari's 2019 deal was unprecedented length, 10 years and a financial scope of $86 million. No such automatic renewal was included. However, it does include a provision that will allow Calipari to transition into the role of athletics director / university representative beginning with the 2024-2025 season. Hey, just say it can transition into that role as early as next year. So
eject. What happens to planes on fire? Eject. Here, go be the assistant to the regional manager of athletic direction.
What do you do here though? Because there's a lot of coaches that are hot and prominent that you could get for a third of the price.
Now, here's what I'm gonna tell you. You want me to tell you who I go get? Is
it Chris Beard?
Chris Beard. That's who I go get. You know who it'd be? I'd say in the SEC. Two guys. I'd get Chris Beard.
Musselman. Is it Mus? How am I saying it?
Musselman? No, I'd go get Chris Beard or Todd Golden from Florida. I'm telling you, Todd's
why
nice.
You say that on Todd?
Look what he's already doing at Florida.
True.
Like that, and that style is fun, but he can I know Florida's not great defensively, but getting the type of athletes that he would be able to get at Kentucky, not that you can't get really good athletes at Florida. I know Florida's been a perennial power in SEC basketball. It used to be like one of the two teams we had that was good, as a matter of fact. But I think Todd Golden could get so much more from a balance perspective, offense, defense, special teams, side out of bounds, things like that, free throws, than what John Calipari is. I think I believe in Todd Golden, man. I really do.
He's just tough as nails. He had happened what had happened in his personal life. It is what it is. We don't really have to elaborate. Those that know.
Yeah,
but ever since then, look what he's done. He's a winner.
Yeah.
I definitely will. But that's an interesting point. I didn't know that fact until you mentioned. That's what made me want to look that up. Let's say it goes horribly bad. What do you think if Daddy Mitch was like, "Hey, dog, go on transition. You'll still get paid what you're going to get paid as a coach.
Yeah,
go on and transition."
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden now you just walk in his office and he's in like a Batman costume, just talking about basketball like on the board.
But I mean, you got to look at it like from John's perspective. As much as John, I will say this: John is better. Gets credit for the flip side of that. 5 or 6 years, gotten more credit as a coach than he has deserved.
Yeah, look,
Lack
I'm
of
not saying
results
John
with the talent.
Calipari's
No,
never,
I
yeah,
agree with
yeah,
you to a certain
done
degree, to a
anything.
certain
Like
extent. Yeah,
he did really good early, but I mean, look, uh, I mean, look at the last half decade. I mean, what you really got. So
nothing that it should be. Nothing that it
not at a
should
place
be.
like Kentucky. I'm not saying you got to win it every year. I know how hard
Yeah,
it is, and guys get bounced all the time in the NCAA tournament. It's basketball, but again, I mean, you've got the best players, man. Like you've got the top percent of the top percent. It's you at some point, you know, the math says, hey, you got to do something at least in conference.
definitely. So I want to switch gears and talk to you a little bit about Louisville, just because I interact with a lot of Louisville people. Um, what's your thoughts on the whole catastrophe that is known as Kenny Payne? Not the person, but the coach.
Look, man, I hate to be so negative on here. It's just like, but look, disaster, right? Like ca- category 5, like evacuate. Just got to look. We what's that one movie that like, we was wrong. We was just. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not working out. And I mean, you had the tight situation and just how bad that they've been, and the few times where they've gotten a little momentum, it's never amounted to anything. I mean, again, take the type person out of it. We all know Kenny Payne's a great person, but this is a business, and you're paid to win at a place like Louisville, a place that has great tradition, a place that does expect to win, and it's just been
yeah,
an absolute disaster. But the good news for Louisville fans is, especially in the sport of basketball, with the freedom of the transfer portal now at a place like Louisville, I mean, you could flip that house real quick. Hell, I just watched Jeff Brom do it right in 1 year with what Louisville was able to do last year. So I know it didn't end the way they wanted to, but you got to feel good about the future. So it's just it's got to be done. It needs to be over. There needs to be a
yeah,
Febreze brothers, fresh start situation that goes on
yeah.
in Louisville, and man, I hate it for Kenny Payne, but Louisville deserves better than that.
My thing is this, and we all know he played at Louisville, went to school there, all that stuff. I really question, had Denny Crum, the legend, may he rest in peace, phenomenal person and coach, had he not gave his vote of confidence and put in a good word mentioning Kenny's name, would Kenny even have the job?
Well, I mean, look, that's how guys get jobs, right? I mean, that's one
No,
of the main
true,
things.
true.
Yeah, like I mean, your references. I don't care if you're going to be a line cook or the head coach at Louisville, especially in the coaching profession. That's what's going to get you in the door. It's somebody trusts you that somebody else trusts at a high
Yeah,
place. So look, Kenny had put his time in. That's probably the saddest part about the whole thing is that for years they talked about Kenny Payne. When's he going to get that big one? When's he going to get that big one? He gets the opportunity. He plays like Louisville, and it's a 5 alarm fire. I mean, everybody run out.
yeah.
Stop, drop, and roll. It's a disaster.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Now, you just talking about Jeff Brom and what he was been able to accomplish in his first year there. His schedule this coming season is a tad bit tougher. They were able to hold on to their best offensive player and a kid by the name of Ashton, who's a phenomenal athlete, would have probably been a mid second, round draft pick. When you have a player like that come back and then you get the players that he's already got this latter part of transfer portal, what do you think Jeff Brown will be able to do given he has so far on paper gotten better talent than the talent he got in his first year?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, they're not going to be able to sneak up on anybody this year, but Jeff Brom's a no nonsense guy. I mean, Jeff Brom's a guy that's as competitive as a head coach as anybody else out there. They obviously started off on the right foot, but I know he's not satisfied until he gets the job all the way done, and he's going to go try and do it again. I think what says the most about Coach Brom is that Jack Plummer was under him before and then left and then wanted to go back and play for him again. I think that shows you the type of trust that Coach Brom has from these guys. I think it's one of the reasons you saw some key guys return that are ready to kind of run this thing back and see if they can't end it on a better note. And as long as Jeff Brom's there, it's going to get more and more, the system's going to get more and more accustomed to the way that he wants it, right? I mean, just like
Yep.
he had it at Purdue, putting Aiden O'Connell in the NFL. The longer he's there, the more he's going to mold that ball of clay, which is your team,
Yep.
into the image that you want it to be. So, again, one of the best parts is you get all that momentum from having a good year in the first year to be able to take on the recruiting trail. Now you're not just selling a dream about we're bringing Louisville back. You're showing them something that actually happened, and you still have a chip on your shoulder because of the way that it ended. So, look, I know the ACC, it feels like it's kind of on fire right now in football because of what's going on with Florida State. But when I look at Louisville, they're kind of in that position where, hey, where Tennessee was this past year, can you do it twice in a row? Can you do it with a different guy at quarterback, right? I think Jeff Brom does have the ability to do that. Schedule is going to be tough, but I mean, what Power 5 schedule really isn't nowadays?
No, definitely, definitely. I mean, who can say or disagree with that? I want to switch gears here and go into the NFL before we touch base on a few more topics before we end this great conversation. I want to talk about my team. I'm not ashamed to admit it, although I am embarrassed. The infamous Dallas Cowboys. I compare Dallas Cowboy football fans or the equivalent to Kentucky basketball fans, if that makes sense, because year after year you're expected to be the best. You say you're going to be the best, and you never are. And then you go in the off season of things. On paper, you're good, expected to be the best, but you don't perform. Yeah, you have all these championships, and I always say this line: unless you have the same amount of championships or more, I don't really care what you say. Now, granted, the past of Dallas outweighs the past, present, and future of 90% of the NFL franchises, minus a few. Be that as it may, like, what the hell? Do you feel Jerry Jones is the main reason that there really isn't the success that should be in Dallas? Or do you feel that it's more on Dak?
Well, look, I'm not a mathematician, but I do know what a common denominator is, and ever since their last Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson and
96,
Jimmy
I
Johnson and
think.
Jerry Jones, the head coaches have changed, quarterbacks have changed, players have changed, hell, the generations of fans have changed, but there's been one common denominator, and that's Jerry Jones. What hasn't changed? So obviously he's got. I'm not saying he's the only problem,
Yeah.
but something is not working. And in my opinion, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks this, I think he's hired a bunch of yes men. And I think they've made some very interesting decisions with some personnel. We all know what happened with Tony Romo and his inability to do anything in the playoffs. And you get Dak. And I didn't understand why Dallas didn't use Dak Prescott like the Eagles have used Jalen Hurts. Like Dak Prescott was at his best when he was a guy that not that you run it every time. You can't survive like that. Anthony Richardson
No,
can't
for
survive
sure.
like that. But they tried to turn Dak Prescott into Drew Brees, like a true drop back passer. And not that Dak's a bad passer, but
Right.
it feels like, and now that he's kind of out of his best playing, shape health wise, because you're never, getting healthier. You're always getting less healthy. That's just the way Father Time built it. It's almost hard to put it back in the box now. I don't understand why they did that. And there's something culturally within that organization that when it's the biggest moments in the playoffs, I mean, how many times can you go 12-5, right? How many times can you get people excited? But it seems like the biggest moments in the playoffs, the Cowboys find a way to lose games. And I just think that at the end of the day, Jerry Jones is the common denominator, and it is what it is, man. Pressure makes diamonds, but it also bursts pipes, and you're either one or the other.
Do you feel like, okay, this other side of Jerry Jones, do you feel if Jerry, the people that he hires, if he actually allowed them to do their jobs, how much better would they be? If he actually outsourced somebody other than himself or his son to be a general manager, how much better they could potentially be. Because I mean, given we all know Jerry's no freaking spring chicken. He's old. He's getting
Yeah.
up there. He's even said it himself. So if a
Yeah.
person is got that much self awareness to realize how much older they're getting day in, year out, wouldn't you think you'd be smart enough to fall back and get somebody that can do the job better?
Well, I mean, I think Jerry Jones is rich enough to get that, you know, pre-presidential debate shot that turns an old man into his 30-year-old form
Yeah,
again. I mean,
for sure.
look at what we're doing with AI. I mean, at what point is Jerry Jones going to be in Ryan Reynolds' body or whatever, like that one movie? But no, look, here's the problem. I think Jerry Jones has been hiring guys that are willing to let Jerry Jones walk all over them. You know,
Mm,
I don't I think guys that could win at Dallas with the Cowboys didn't take the job because they knew how it was going to be and they knew it wasn't going to work because they weren't going to let Jerry Jones walk all over them because they understood that they need to do it their way and that's the way that's going to win and you can't do it there. It's all about functionality, right? I'm not going to go to a place that's not going to allow me to do whatever it takes when my ass is on the line to be able to win. So guys that are taking that job, not saying they're bad people. I think Jason Garrett's a great guy think Mike McCarthy, aka the sitcom dad's a fantastic guy, right? But ever since Jimmy Johnson, nobody's taken that job that'll look Jerry in the face and say, "Kiss my ass, we're doing this," right? They don't have a Kevin Costner on draft day to the owner, right? They don't have that guy, and that guy didn't take the job. So I think it's more about the type person that takes that job with Jerry Jones operating the way he does. I think that's more to do with it.
now, we also all know a lot of people are in the uproar about bringing McCarthy back and bringing Dak Prescott back. Hey, listen, I don't blame Jerry on that part. One, financially, nobody's going to take that on what Dak's owed. Two, you're not even going to get a second round draft pick for him based on his continuous abysmal performance in the playoffs. And then three, with McCarthy, it's on an expiring contract. So why wouldn't you let him coach for his job?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, you kind of put yourself in this spot, right? That
Yeah.
still doesn't mean you make a rash decision or do something that is hasty, regardless of how old you are. Speaking of Jerry Jones, so I get why they did it, right? I mean, you're still gonna have to find a way to pay CD and Micah, and then be able to put a team around that can compete. And I would Dak be willing to take a pay cut like Tom Brady did or some of these other guys did to be able to put more around him. I don't know, but yeah, look, you've kind of locked yourself into this situation. It's smart to let it play out one more year. So no, I don't fault him for doing that. It's just, it's unfortunate you put yourself in that situation in the first place.
No, definitely. I'm going to touch something that you guys talked about on today's show, and I think it was even you. You brought it up about the comparison of Stephen A. and the whole Cliff Kingsbury
Hmm.
situation and the enemy.
Yeah.
What made you come up with that opinion? Because I agree with most of it. Like it's preposterous and it's borderline asinine.
Yeah.
Would harp on something like that so much.
Well, look, and I can respect, somebody's rise in a profession and still not like the way they go about it. And I think Stephen A talks out of both sides of his mouth. I think Stephen A, if he's on this network, he'll cater to that person. If he's on this other network, he'll cater to that person. And when I hear him talk about, oh well, Eric Bieniemy got fired from the Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury got that job because of racism, or that would never happen to black people. Well, here's the thing I don't understand. I mean, Roger Goodell and them came out this week for the first time ever. The NFL is a minority majority.
Yeah.
51% of the employees aren't white, are black or Hispanic. 75% of the NFL players, who is the portion of the organization that makes the most money, are black. I don't hear him complaining about there's not enough white corners, or we don't have enough Asian centers, or we don't have enough, of this race. But it's majority black. Like I don't think Stephen A and them are going to be happy until there's just nothing but only black people in the NFL. I don't, because again, what happens there? I think their worst fear, and the people that do this race baiting stuff, which I think is awful in sports, is that all of a sudden the script does get flipped and there is more black people, they're going to have nothing to complain about. And they're going to lose 80% of their shtick because then they're just going to have to analyze the game, like, and not have to bring up fake racism and stuff. Like, what are they going to do? Like, I don't know what Jamel Hill's going to do. She may just start trying to write books about the wizarding world or something, or
Hey,
children's books or something.
speaking of her, and I'm not trying to interject, but you made me think of this. Did she really say that about fucking Dan Campbell?
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
I said, hold on.
Yeah, that was
So
real.
I seen that meme. I was like, oh shit, there's no way this is
yeah,
real.
of
I
course.
can't
Well,
believe
that's the problem with doing that. And listen, like I hate even
that's
bringing it up.
horrible.
I hate even bringing it
That's
up. But there's a
horrible.
reason people have stopped watching ESPN. There's a reason we started a Crane and Company. I'm from the generation that used to watch Sports Center reruns back to back to back, right? And it was just about sports. Sports Center Top 10, right? Reports, highlights, funny jokes at the end of highlights, like funny commercials. And they've ruined it with this stuff. They've absolutely ruined it. And it's people like Stephen A. Smith that go on there and say how great it is that Joel Embiid scored 73 points and that Luka doing it is a fluke, right? It just, at some point, I'm so sick of hearing like Brian Flores sues the NFL for being racist and then takes another job in the NFL, therefore supporting the guys that he called. I'm just, man, I'm sick of it. Like stop. Like I'm almost glad it's 51% now. Because every time somebody says this stupid stuff, like, it just gets shown to be ridiculous. Like, I'm just, man, it's unfortunate.
No, you're right. And you saying them kind of things made me think about this situation that people have often forgot about when it comes to RG3, Robert Griffin III. You may remember this, but a lot of people don't. And people thought I was lying when I said this. But not a while after he retired, quit essentially, or just kind of got forced out of the league or from the Commanders, he was on the verge of really coming out with a tell-all book. Conveniently, not long after that is announced, he got a job. He's all over television. Like, so what I would really like to know is, what does he actually truly know that they are doing whatever they can to prevent him from actually saying? Because prior to him coming out saying this about having a tell-all book and stuff like that, nothing mentioned about him ever having a job in sportscasting.
Look, to be honest with you, I don't know too much about that. Nothing would shock me nowadays. You know, the thing about RG3 is, like, half the time when I'm watching RG3, I enjoy, his football knowledge. He was obviously
He
a guy
actually is
that,
decent,
yeah,
though.
no,
He
well,
actually is.
again, I mean, look, if you bake muffins every day for so long and you're really good at it, you're gonna be really good at talking about baking muffins and watching people baking muffins and talking about it. So, like, yeah, I can respect that. Now, look, sometimes does he do quirky things and goofy things, and are some of those TikToks, super duper cringy? Yeah. But I tell you what, and I sometimes he does do a little bit of that stuff I was talking about earlier, but not at the level of somebody said. I'll say this about RG3 though. At least wherever he goes, whoever he's talking to, he's himself, right? He's the same
Facts. He
guy,
is.
and I can respect that. I may disagree with you. I think dissent moves us forward, but I respect people where you're the same all the time. The problem I have with Stephen A is he'll go on Fox News and act like he's one guy. Then he'll go on ESPN and act like he's another guy, and then he'll go on his talk show and act like he's another guy. It's like, dude, he's like the guy from Split. It's like the first 10 minutes, he's like an English woman, and then the next he's like an 8-year-old, like on a tricycle. Like, it's just and it's so blatantly obvious. And I'm not even talking about the basketball stuff that Whitlock was talking about. I don't know about any of that, but I mean,
that was crazy though, man. I ain't gonna lie, that was crazy. I've never
yeah.
seen somebody in a position of Stephen A.
Jason
Smith
and him are getting after it.
speak like that.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
Mhm.
Man, so I'm going to switch gears here and talk about a couple of things non-sports related. You hinted earlier kind of on your journey. Did you ever have any self-doubt?
You know, look, I'd be lying if I didn't say, there were times where I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, a lot of it's because I didn't plan on this to happen. I didn't like really prepare for this to happen. I just
Yeah.
kind of happened by the seat of my pants, and I was just building the parachute on the way down. Thank God landed pretty good. But um I think there are moments where, you wonder in the back of your mind, like, is this gonna work, or was this the right decision? And those are the times where, look, if times like didn't happen like that, the sweet times wouldn't be as sweet. I mean, those are the times where you really find out, how much you want to do something. Everybody can be excited about it when it's going good. Like everybody can go out there and work really hard and try and do all the right things when everything's going smooth. But it's those times where, maybe you're transitioning to something, new, or going to a new place or something like that, whether it be moving up or whatever, where you've got to dig down deep and just trust, your ability to do it. I'm a pretty confident person. I've always kind of
Yeah.
been that way. But I mean, I'm also a human being that, I mean, there's good times and there's bad times, but again, I don't let the bad times, define me. I think you just got to push through them.
Definitely, definitely. How important to you now that you're married? How important to you, a person, especially a man, to have a supportive wife when they are pursuing something they're passionate about?
Yeah. Well, look, it's huge. I mean, again, it's, for you to be able to operate at your highest efficiency level, and it goes both ways. Your partner has to be in it with you. They have to, you know, um, believe in what you're doing and truly believe in it. I think we can tell when somebody's just putting up with something as opposed to truly believing in it. And again, it's during those down times where, when you decided to get married, those were the times that you wanted to be together to be able to get through it. And having that other person reinforce that, not that you just always say stuff that's positive. Sometimes that there needs to be times where an honest conversation is had.
Yeah.
It's not always roses and rainbows, right? So, but you know, in order to fulfill your full potential, which is what I think, all of our goals should be, in my opinion, yeah, having a supportive wife is massive. It's that extra fuel. What did Bobby Boucher call it? Tackling fuel. That's what it is. I mean, again,
I like Vicky Valancourt, mama.
yeah,
And she
yeah,
like me too.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Uh, men are supposed to have stinky feet.
Yeah.
But no, look, it's one of those things where I could always be able to. It's like a coach's his job is to push a player further than they can push themselves. I mean, when you have a spouse, that's the thing that, to me pushes me even further. I want, her to be proud of me. I want, our kids, our eventual kids to be proud of me. I want her to be able to have the things that she wants to have and do the things that she wants to do, and my kids to have it better than what I had it. So, yeah, I mean, having a supportive spouse, it's massive. You have to have that, or why have a spouse?
True. All right. Two more things, and then I'm going to ask you a question, off record. What's your thoughts on a Super Bowl? And who needs to win more?
Well, I mean, look, I'm done betting against Patrick Mahomes. Like, I'm just done doing that, especially
At
where the
least you're honest.
49ers have gotten,
Facts.
the 49ers gotten off to bad starts the last two games. If they do that against the Chiefs, the way the Chiefs are playing on defense, the Chiefs haven't given up double-digit points in the second half, I think the last 8 or 9 games. What they're doing in the back end is unbelievably impressive. But look, we know the 49ers have more weapons in Ukraine right now, and Brock Purdy is a guy that's found a way to get them there. I'm wondering if the 49ers are due, to play a good game. It's felt like they've just kind of cobbled these last two games together. But I just look at Patrick Mahomes, man, and when it's just 4 quarters, when it's only one game, and that offense is starting to kind of figure it out a little bit. Rashi Rice has stepped up. I mean, what Valdez Scantling's been able to do coming off a year and where he had some drop issues, especially on the deep ball. And we all know what Travis Kelce is, but I'm just not betting against Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift. But as far as who needs it more, I mean, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have won a bunch. It's been a while since the 49ers won one. And I think Shanahan, after having what happened when he was the OC at the Falcons with Matt Ryan and Dan Quinn, and what happened to the Patriots, blowing that lead in the Super Bowl, I'm going to go the 49ers need it more.
No, they definitely do. They definitely do. I'm going to stay on and touch on Travis Kelsey a little bit. Pause. Uh, um, Do you say, or do you feel or think that if he is to win, if they are to win this year, this coming weekend, who's to say he wouldn't retire? Because a lot of people, I've seen it on somebody from Sportskeeda, or however you pronounce that word. I've seen a lot of people talk about it on TikTok. People often forget how the relationship Travis really has with his older brother Jason. I mean, Travis has said it several thousand times. The reason he got into football was because of Jason. Who's to say that if he wins, what else do you have to prove?
Yeah.
Retire fully healthy, retire a
Yeah.
millionaire, and you can go into the Hall of Fame with your brother.
Yeah. No, I think there's a pretty good chance that if the Chiefs win this one, Travis Kelce will retire for all those reasons you listed. And he's young enough to where, if he wants to come back, even if it's a couple of years, he could probably put another season or two together with the age he's at and where he's at now health wise. So yeah, for all those reasons you listed, I would not be shocked at all if Travis retired, and it would be a Hall of Fame career easily. You would go out on top and still kind of leave that door open if you wanted to sneak back in a couple years later.
Definitely. And last question about the Super Bowl. I think the final score is going to be.
Give me the Chiefs 31-27.
That is a good. I was going to say 31-28. Pretty much the same thing. How does Jake Crane, the person, want to be remembered when Jake's time on earth is said and done? How does Jake want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a great husband, great father, great grandfather, guy that tried to do the right thing every time, a guy that left it better than he found it, all the cliche things. But I want people to remember he's a guy that worked his ass off, and the guy that kind of did it his own way. I want to be remembered for multiple things. Guy that was right a lot, right? A guy that hit a lot of bets. A guy that retired a billionaire. Let me just put
Right.
all the things in there. So yeah, but mainly those first things.
All right. And the last thing before we touch on stuff off record, if you could give anybody any advice, what would it be and why? Doesn't have to be about media or anything like that, just life in general. What advice would you give somebody?
The best advice I would give somebody, if you don't want to worry about what the price tag is when you want to buy something, then you can't look at the clock when you're working. That's just the truth.
That is true. Jake, I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
I did, man. I appreciate it. I'm gonna gotta run and go get some dog food now. And my wife's speaking of my wife, she's gonna get super pissed at me when she gets home.